Hello. Today I will be talking about normal development. In pediatrics, growth and development are two very important aspects, and they are very peculiar to the topic of pediatrics, to the subject of pediatrics. Because pediatrics deals with children right from birth up to end of adolescence, and all through changes are happening. They are growing in size, they are growing in abilities, they are maturing, and this whole process is encompassed in growth and development. And we need to know details of growth and development to understand the child's health, understands the child's ability to perform, and also the adult outcome in adulthood. So this marks the importance of these two areas, and I will start today with development. The topic of discussion today will be normal development. So what are the objectives? What do we want to learn? We need to know what is development, the different domains of development, what all aspects are developing, and what do we mean by normal development? Age-wise, what is normal, and domain-wise, what is normal? So first of all, we need to know what is development. Development is actually a process of evolution. It's a continuous process through which a child or a baby is evolving from a state of total immaturity to maturity. A newborn is not mature, but from there we will go on to an adult with full maturity. From a state of no control to full control. Again, think of a newborn who has no control over even his own body. He doesn't even know what crying means. To a state of full control over self as well as over environment. And all this is a continuous process, starting right from conception up to maturity. Direction of development is mostly cephalocaudal. It starts from the head downwards. I'm talking about motor development in this case. And another thing to remember is the sequence of development is the same in different domains. For example, a child will always learn to sit before he learns to walk. You would never see a child walking before he learns to sit. So the sequence remains the same, but the rate definitely varies. And when the rate goes beyond the normal range, we call it a developmental delay or deviation. Now, what is the period of development? As I've already mentioned, it starts right from conception and continues into adulthood. But maximum development occurs in the first 3 years, starting from conception, which we refer to as the first 1,000 days. And this is the period of early childhood development. These two phrases I have marked in red because they are of great importance in today's world. A lot of work is being done regarding early childhood development. We will see why. Because it is said that from conception to start of school, that is during this period, this is the critical window of opportunity when we can shape the development of a child's brain. We can improve the child's developmental status. To understand this, we need to have an idea about the neurobiology of development. What is happening in the brain to cause the development? Well, in the first years of life, the brain grows at a prolific rate. What do I mean by that? I'll just give you a few figures. 100 billion neurons develop, and each neuron gives rise to 15,000 or more synapses by the age of 3 years. And the rate of formation of these new connections is 1,000 or more per second. So it's growing at a tremendous rate. And all this depends a lot on the interaction of that individual with the environment and the experience that he is gaining. Then what happens with all this overgrowth? The brain would be growing and growing and growing and then bursting. So that doesn't happen. This overgrowth is sized down by the process of pruning, and new connections, important connections are built up where the child gets enough stimulation, and the areas which are not stimulated die out. So this pruning is possible, and changes in the brain are possible in the young child, and this is what is called plasticity. A child's newly developing brain is highly plastic. So these are certain characteristics which are specific in a young child, and this is how the brain gradually grows. Let's see how it looks. The picture on top is of a tree, a pruning of a tree. You've seen a gardener. In the rainy season, some plants grow wild and they look terrible. So what does a gardener do? He cuts down unnecessary branches and gives it a proper shape. This is what is known as pruning. The same thing happens in the brain. And from the newborn period right up to 9 months, newborn to 1 month, 9 months, and even 2 years, a lot of growth has happened, and it's full of neurons. And then pruning starts. The unnecessary portions are cut off or destroyed, and newer, more important connections come in till you get this picture in the brain of the neurons in an adult. So, with this neurobiological background, development is happening. But why is the baby developing? I wouldn't say growth, developing. Developing to achieve firstly, motor skills. That is control over the self. This motor skills are first gross and then fine. After this, control over the self is attained, the child starts looking around. Interest is evoked in the surroundings. He looks at toys, he tries to catch the toys, and then he explores and he analyzes the surroundings. And as he analyzes, he relates it to oneself. He knows his self, he has control over the self, and he knows how he can manipulate the surrounding. Which person he should go to for food. What should he do when he is hungry? He should cry, because when he cries, that person who is always there when he cries, will bring him the milk. So this is relating to the surroundings. And he tries to gain control over the surroundings. Whenever that person tries to leave the room, the baby will cry out loud, knowing well now that his crying will keep that person beside him. So this is how it goes on. So what are the domains? We already know. It's gross motor, fine motor, personal, social, adaptive, language. What do I mean? Gross motor, we all understand. It's the activity of the body. Fine motor is activity of the fine muscles, leading to fine activity, mostly finger activity, which will lead to not only writing and arts, but also feeding oneself, dressing oneself, doing all day-to-day activity. Then comes personal, social, adaptive. As I was just mentioning in the previous slide, understanding oneself, one's needs, understanding the surroundings, that's a social development, how to react to the social environment. Different environments, the child will react differently. So this adapting the persona to the social environment is adaptive development. So it goes hand in hand. Another is language, communication, which includes receptive language, understanding, expressive language, verbal or non-verbal. Two other aspects, emotional development, the other is cognitive. All of these are under the domain of intelligence, lot of it. So cognitive development, unless the intelligence is developed properly, these will not take proper shape. So perfect balance of development at various domains is essential for holistic development. What are the sequence of development? How do they occur? First, it's gross motor, so it's most prominent in the first year of life. Fine motor starts from the later half of first year, and then it goes on well till the third year of life. Social and cognitive development start from the first year, but they gain momentum in the second year and then go on. Now, before we look at the domains, I will just show you some pictures. Let us try to follow the pictures and get an understanding about how in a similar situation or similar position or posture, children or babies at different ages will react differently. So here are 4 babies put in a supine position. How do they appear to you? A 4-week-old baby is lying supine. Limbs are a little stiff. Now, with no control over, he doesn't look, it's apparent that he doesn't know what to do with his limbs. He's crying. At 2 months, the baby is lying limp, but the baby seems to be at ease. The legs are flexed, the hands are above his head. He could do that on his own. And he's looking upwards, looking for something. 4 months, the baby is now even more into the environment. He has seen a stethoscope and he's trying to reach out to it. At 7 months, he's playing with something in his hands and he's looking to a side where maybe his mother is calling him or talking. So he's more responsive. The same babies I put in a prone position. What do we see? The first one, the 4-weeker, again lying limp with no control. 2-month-old has his hand in his mouth, head turned to one side. This baby still doesn't have much control, but better than before. At 4 months, now the baby can lift his head and he's looking around. At 7 months, he can lift his body up on his hands and almost about to crawl. Now, next endeavor is I'm trying to pull the baby to a sitting position. 4-week-old baby is like a rag, limp. The head is falling back. 2 months, still the head is falling back, but, which I cannot show in this picture, the head was raised to the plane of the body momentarily and then sagged. 4 months, there's no sagging. Now the head control is there. The baby is trying to lift himself up as we pull him. And at 9 months, this girl is sitting perfectly on her own. Now, if I place all of these babies in a sitting position, what do I see? At 4 weeks, the baby just bends on himself. No control. 4 months, the baby can maintain a sitting position with support on his hands and the back is rounded. 7 months, no support is required and the baby can even turn and take an object which is kept at his side. And at 12 months, sitting steadily and playing. So, looking at these pictures, we have an idea about how changes are occurring. Now I will go into discussing milestones age-wise. Before I start that, word of caution. Memorizing milestones age-wise can be a very tedious task and very boring, and this is something most of students tend to flip over the pages. That is because it culminates into a milestone and an age, a milestone and an age. I would request you not to try to memorize them without understanding the situation. That is why here, what I would suggest is for every single age, try to have a mental picture of what the baby can do. The dates against each milestone is not that important. It can be flexible by a month or 2. But an idea about what comes after what, around what age group is what is more important. So that conception of the philosophy of development should be there. That is how I will be dealing with it now. I will go age-wise, talk about what all this baby can do. If you can remember more of it, very good. If you cannot, try to at least remember the little bit, the amount that I will be placing here before you. So at 4 weeks, and also as you go through the slides, you will see on the left, there are some blue letters which indicate which domain that activity is pertaining to. So at 4 weeks, the baby generally lies in a flex position. There is head lag. In prone, the legs are extended as you have seen. The head is just sustained in the plane of the body. The 4-week-old baby can watch a human face. He will look at the mother's face and he just can begin to smile. At 2 months, now the baby has a definite social smile. He not only looks at the mother, but he looks at objects and he can trace the object through 180 degrees. And he listens to the human voice. At 3 months, Lying supine, the baby reaches out and waves at a body like this. Putting the baby prone, the arms are extended, the head can be lifted above the body plane. There is an early head control, but still there is bobbing. The baby can be put to a sitting position, but the back is rounded. This is when the baby listens to music and starts vocalizing. Ow, that sort of noise. A little later, 4 months, now the baby has come back to a symmetrical posture. Prior to this, the baby did not have good control over his limbs, because if the head was turned to one side, the limbs on the other side would flex automatically and the limbs on the other side would be extended. This was the tonic neck reflex that we talk about. So there was very little control. Now at 4 months, the baby maintains a symmetrical posture and he can bring the hands to the midline voluntarily. He can reach out for objects, grasp them and bring it to his mouth. He sits with a truncal support. He can. The head is now steady and that smile has been now converted into a laughing. The baby can laugh aloud. We go to 6 months. Now the baby can turn over from supine to prone position. He can transfer an object. The object that he was just grasping at 4 months, now he transfers from one hand to the other. He enjoys playing with a mirror. And he has learned to babble. From vocalization, babbling with a few consonants also comes in. We jump on to 7 to 8 months. Now the baby is sitting up alone without any support. The back is straight and he can pivot to pick up an object. He can pull to stand if you pull him up. And sometimes the baby cruises from one furniture to another. This is the time, because he can sit, he will look at small objects, he will poke at small objects with his fingers and start trying to grasp it with all fingers. I'll come to it later. At this junction point, this baby is developing an idea about permanence, that something that is not seen in front is still there, hidden somewhere. That concept is coming. This is when the baby learns to play peekaboo. You hide and he'll look for you. You hide a toy, he'll try to retrieve it. This is the time when the mother goes away somewhere to another room, he will shout and call and cry, knowing that mom is somewhere there and she'll come back. And this is also the time that separation anxiety develops. The baby is comfortable with the primary caregiver, does not want to stay with somebody else, and he'll be looking for the primary caregiver. He responds to name when called, and this is when he starts calling, speaking out 2 syllables, dada, mama. Then we go on to 1 year. The baby is walking with one hand held. There is an unassisted pincer grasp. What do I mean by this? The baby who was looking at small objects and trying to poke through it with his finger. Then he uses all 4 fingers to poke. From there, he will be gradually trying to pick up that small object. And a proper pincer grasp is these 2 fingers, picking an object with 2 fingers. Prior to that, what he does is, first it's an assisted pincer grasp. He puts an ulnar support and then picks the object up with 4 fingers, like this, with 4 fingers. Then with 3 fingers, finally with 2 fingers without that support. So at 1 year, the unassisted pincer grasp is there. He learns to release an object when you ask for it. The baby can play with a ball. Now he learns to feed a doll, points to body parts, and he uses few words with meaning. So his pretending imagination is starting to evolve at this age. At 15 months, the baby can walk alone. He indicates his needs. He can, now the small object that he was picking up, he can put it inside a bottle. See, and he also enjoys playing with cubes. He can build tower of 3. Give him a pen or pencil and a paper, he will be scribbling. He is emotionally evolving also. He hugs his parents, he smiles, he enjoys being cuddled, and his language is evolving with few words and also a lot of jargon. He uses his own words. 18 months, now the baby runs stiffly. The pellet that he was putting in the bottle, he now can dump it out of the bottle. The scribbling, he now enjoys scribbling. His play is evolving. He can also feed himself with a spoon. His play is evolving. He can name pictures, he can name body parts and parts of the doll. He starts to imitate his mother in feeding the doll. At 2 years, the baby can run well, he can climb up furniture, he can open doors, so he gets into the exploration mode. He can do a lot of parallel play. What I mean by parallel play is he plays with other children, but not with them. Two children of 2 years will sit side by side, enjoy their company, enjoy and share the same toy, but will not play together. This is parallel play. This is when the baby learns to listen to stories. He can help in undressing a little bit, and he's talking in small sentences of 2 to 3 words. 30 months, 2.5 years. Now the baby is running well. He can go upstairs one at a time. He, with a pencil, can now draw a line. With blocks, 8 blocks, tower of 8 blocks. Small sentences. He refers to himself as I. And this is when the age when pretend play and is initiated. He's pretending to be his dad, pretending to be his mom, and he's imitating parents, and sometimes cooking, sometimes dusting, sometimes riding the scooter, talking on a phone, and pretending. Even without a phone, he'll do hello. 36 months, that is 3 years of age. Now the child can ride a tricycle. He can, with a pencil, he can draw a circle. He can build a bridge, and his social knowledge is improving. He knows his age, he knows his sex. He can also tell some simple stories, and he can play simple games. He enjoys company. 4 years, now he's hopping, he's throwing a ball and making a bridge or a gate with blocks. He enjoys playing with blocks. This is the time when he starts drawing a person also. He gets into role playing, and he enjoys telling a story. 5 years, he knows he's learning a lot. His cognitive development is really improving. He knows his colors, he can count well, he can recite a rhyme, he can dress and undress, his self-care is improving, he can do his activities of daily living, and he's very inquisitive, very curious. So now you see how gradually from a newborn, a 5-year-old child has evolved. Now, with this knowledge, when a child is brought to you, what will you do? How will you clinically approach? After taking a history of the milestones, which I will not go into now, we will discuss in the next class, we talk about the clinical approach, only what you will exactly do with the child. Well, I would suggest start with placing the child in a prone position, as I showed in those pictures. In the prone position, you will note the tone, the position of the head and limbs, and also you can do a ventral suspension. Then you place the baby in the supine position. There again, you see the posture, see if there is head lag and movement of arms. After that, right from the supine position, you can pull the child to a sitting or standing position. Like if it's a older child, an 8-month-old, you don't have to do a pull to sit. He's already sitting. You can do a pull to stand. And by this, you note the stability of the head, the trunk, and the limbs. With this idea, we go on to offer some objects. First of all, large objects. For a small baby who's lying down, you show the object, you dangle it. And then if it's a sitting baby like you see in the picture, you can give those objects to him. See if he can follow, if he can grasp, transfer, release when you ask for it, or play hide and seek. You cover it up, see if you can retrieve it. So all of these things you can do with a large object. Then, for a baby who can sit, we offer some small objects to see if he is following it with his eyes, whether there are raking movements, whether pincer grasp is developed as you see in this picture here, and whether you can put it into or out of a bottle. Then we can offer blocks to build towers and bridges. We can offer a pencil and paper to see if the baby can hold the pencil, whether the baby can scribble. Then what sort of mark is he putting on the paper? And for that, there's a mnemonic which will help you later on, which goes by LOCKS STD. At 2 to 2.5 years, a child can generally draw a line. And then at 2.5, a circle. At 3, an X. At 4, a square, at 5 a triangle, and at 6 a diamond. This is the minimum that a child should be able to do. Then we can ask the baby to draw a man as well for an older child. A rattle is useful in testing whether the child can hear. Then we analyze the vocal response. What is the baby doing vocally? Laughing, vocalizing, babbling, using uttering small words, bisyllables, mama, dada, with or without meaning, small words, vocabulary, whether the baby can talk in a sentence, whether the baby can tell a story. According to age, these are the things I look for. Then coming to the emotional response, starting from the social smile, I will gradually see if the baby and ask and watch if the baby prefers mother, if there is separation anxiety, response to the mother's attitudes when the mother is happy or sad or angry, how is the baby responding, the clinging and resistance normal in a small baby, expressions of likes and dislikes, peer interaction, all these we will look into. So get an idea now as to how you'll approach the child. If all this becomes too much and we have to do a screening, this is the most commonly used screening tool, which I will discuss in the next class. This is just to show you. This is called the Trivandrum Development Screening Chart. What we have here is only 17 items which we need to test to screen the development in a child up to 2 years of age. And these 17 items cover all 4 domains. And finally, to do all this developmental assessment that you are expected to do, what all things do you need? Your teacher will be telling you that you need to carry a development kit with you for your classes in the wards or for your exams. What are the things that a kit should have? Simple. A rattle or a bell for making sound, a torch for light, a red ring, a small ball and a small doll, a small cup where you can put the pellets, beads or pellets. We often use puff rice. That's safer because if a baby puts it in his mouth, there won't be any risk of aspiration. And a bottle, small bottle, crayons and paper and blocks. So with this, I end today's class. We have talked about normal development. Now you have a basic idea about what normal development is. Next day, we will go into developmental screening and assessment. Thank you.